Welcome to our round the world adventure, Travel by the Dozen. Join us as our large family of unschooled kids live life to its craziness, creates all weird and wonderful things, continues to live through tragedy and loss, manages pregnancy and marriage, and cooks amazing vegan food. We look forward to having you along. Hi amazing peeps. This is a video on why I become vegan in the first place. Now, if any of you know me or have followed even along a little bit on the blog I had before this, you'd know that I was not vegan. I was so anti-vegan, and even towards the end of Shakira's pregnancy, I was only eating steak and chocolate. That was all I was eating for the entire day. I went through a stage of just being zero carb, carnivorian. I would only eat animal products. Cheese was limited, but mainly it was eggs and meat with whatever I had to have dairy in it. And so I was complete opposite. I was one of these people that believed that vegans lose their hair and they become argumentative and they're snappy and they push their point and they're But I also started to notice after going carnivorian a little bit, and I was part of a carnivorian forum, that the aggression in there was massive. And I did start to wonder whether the meat made, like nothing but meat, made people aggressive. So I was the complete opposite. I never believed that I could go without meat or dairy or eggs. I believed that we absolutely needed them 100%, that we could not survive without them. And I also went through a stage of spiritualism. I know when I first fell pregnant with Shakira, I went vegetarian because, I think it was just before, I felt like I needed to, like there was a stepping stone, and I was meditating every day, and this is when we're on the boat in Eden, and it just was great. But I limited that vegetarianness to only a few fruits and vegetables because we didn't have a fridge. Nothing would last. And so I found it very hard to maintain, and I went back on meat. And then we lost Zenobia, and everything changed. I was in such a bad state for such a long time. I would eat whatever. It didn't matter. I didn't even want to cook. I didn't have the energy to cook. It doesn't mean that I didn't, and it was a good distraction when I actually did it, but it was so difficult to get my head around, and it was so difficult for the kids to get their head around cooking. Nobody wanted to do anything. And so having to cook a meal that was big enough to satisfy them, though their eating went to tiny. They didn't eat properly for months and months and months. Probably about 4 or 5 months before they actually started to eat they were eating 2 kilos of rice a night, and a kilo of meat and veggies and spices, and that went down to maybe 3/4 of a kilo, and that was to feed all of them. They just weren't eating. But neither were we. Steve and I didn't eat, and then when we did eat, it got to a point where we just wanted comfort food. And I was already pregnant with Squishy, and then we went through a stage where Steve and I would have a glass of alcohol every night, and we would feel like we needed that just to function. We would need that. And so the eating was just everywhere. Lots and lots of junk. Lots of whatever was quickest. And then come I think it was probably things started to turn around about the 4-month mark for Steve and I. We both started to feel that change where we wanted to cook, and so we started cooking our meals and we started having more decent meals, not so much junk meals, and then and we felt better. And then come 6 months, that's where the real change come. 6 months after it all happened, when it first happened, I lost all spiritual anything. I felt like I had been lied to. You know, I did the whole positive thinking. I did the whole, you focus on what you get. I did the universe, is always there to help you, so on and so forth. And the universe took away my daughter. So anything and everything, I made an old post called, it was something about hysterical and hilarious, and it was about how we didn't cut our hair for 3 years based on the Native Americans being able to pick up sensors through the bottom of their hair, and they could prove this. They proved this in World War II. But of course, I didn't have those inklings on that day. I didn't have that foresight or even that feeling that something was not right. I didn't have anything, and neither did Steve. We didn't have anything. It was not till I had gone out to go get water and rubbish that things started to go, oh, I wonder, that looks like that. Like, I remember we nearly ran over a crab boy in the water, and because it wasn't marked and it was green and it was dark water, and I remember thinking, that looks horribly like a body in the water. It wasn't, but I wonder whether that was, a warning. And because I didn't have any of these warnings, this idea of not cutting my hair, I just went, I think it was 5 or 6 days after it, I went and got my hair cut. It's just like, I can't look in the mirror anymore. Even my hair's a lie. And so when it came to six months, I started to look into very limited spiritual aspects. And during this time, I found myself seeing animals, like spiders inside. We would move outside. Nothing got killed. We would see a line of ants along the drive, and we would step over them. And you would, I remember coming back from the shops once. I was walking and I saw a worm in the middle of the path, and it was on a warm day, and I picked it up and I put it in the shade on the grass so he could rebury, because I didn't want anything else to experience the pain that we were experiencing. Yet I was still eating meat. And there was that, regardless I come from a farm, there was that disassociation that something needed to be killed so I could eat. And it wasn't until I started looking into the spiritual stuff that by accident I come across something kind of related to it that had to do with food. And it was about connecting to nature. Not so much spiritually, but about connecting to nature. I thought it was spiritual at the time. And I realized it was like a switch clicked, that I was causing pain to animals who were being treated horribly. I was causing pain to them, and I was causing them death. It's just so I could eat something that I found out I didn't even need to eat. I can get my protein from, and it's complete protein, from plants. I can get, and all the animals get their protein from plants. And I could get everything I need. I supplement with B12, and at the moment I supplement with iron just to make sure I've got enough. And I could get all that from plants. Why am I causing the death of animals? So I started looking into it deeply, and I realized there was that switch that day. So the very next day I said I went vegetarian. Within half a day, I realized I was going vegan, purely because vegetarian wasn't enough. Having come from a farm and having milked our goats, I thought, meat, I don't want anything killed for me, fine, I won't eat meat. But what about milk? Milk's fine. But then I sat there and these images started coming to me on what we did with our goats. What did you have to do with the goats? You had to separate baby from mum. That's what you had to do. Even if it was just for the night, you had to separate baby and mum. And they would cry for each other so badly. And sometimes mum would hurt herself trying to break through the barriers to get to her baby. And I remember, this was before I had Squishy, and I remember thinking, if that was me, if someone took my baby away so that they could use my milk for something they don't need, is that okay? And I went, no, that is not even remotely okay. And so I went, okay, dairy's out. And of course then I went, well, eggs are fine, because we've had chickens. We know that a chicken lays eggs every day, and she abandons them unless she's clucky. She just completely abandons them, and if she breaks them, she'll start to eat them, and that will be a thing. And then you won't have any eggs because she'll start to eat them. She'll sort of cannibalize her own eggs. That's not what you want either. That's not good for them. And so I thought, well, eggs are fine. And I was of that mentality, though part of me was going, no, you need to get rid of it all. Part of that, I was sort of going, eggs were fine, until I saw how the chickens are treated. And then I went, eggs are out. There is no way in hell I am touching an egg, because if that's where I'm getting my eggs from, you've got to be kidding me. I'm not going to cause anything else any more harm so I can eat something I do not need to eat. And it was purely because we had been through so much. But it's been a switch. It's been a switch that I don't know that I can switch back. I know what it's doing. And then there's the environmental factor, which is massive. But for me, it was that connection with having experienced such pain and such loss that I didn't want anything to experience that. I didn't want anything. Not animal. I mean, in the place we're in now, when we first arrived, there were a few cockroaches, which, I couldn't kill them. I actually killed one because I couldn't catch it. And I killed it, and I cried and cried that I had killed something. And it was just a cockroach, but this is before I even went vegan. I had broken that rule to myself that I would cause anything else pain, and I just killed something. And I mean, I don't even like killing flies or mosquitoes. I don't like killing anything. And it just becomes a thing. I would put earwigs outside, and now I can't. I've got to the point that I just can't. I can't cause anything else more pain. I have been through so much pain. I can't cause another animal pain like that. I can't have babies taken off their parents, whether they're pigs or cows or it doesn't matter. I can't do that. I can't have that happen to them and be okay with it. I can't eat that and know that's going on and be okay with it, because I can't. I'm not okay with it. Which is why I went vegan. And I have to admit, I feel incredible. And 3 weeks before I went vegan, I had an iron test done, and it was very, very good. The ferritin was very, very good. So the ferritin was your stores of iron. That was at 44. My hemoglobin wasn't so good. It was 113. but they weren't worried because my ferritin was so high. And then the next blood test, which I had a week before I turned vegan, doesn't matter. It was just before I turned vegan, but the other one might have been a bit earlier than that. I hadn't taken my iron tablets because I got so complacent. I thought, well, hey, that's just, my iron's good. I don't need to take it. I got a call from the hospital saying the day before our appointment, saying, I've just looked at your iron test. You're really, really low. Your hemoglobin is now 108 and your ferritin is at 10. And I went, holy crap. And she said, well, we can either do an iron infusion tomorrow. I can order it now and get it ready for tomorrow, or we can just get you to take your iron supplements again. I said, I'll just take my iron supplements again. We had still had time. It was 3 weeks from that point before Squishy was due according to the ultrasound. So I decided to just do that. But I did tell her when I went in, I said, look, this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm eating now. I only started this the day before. This is how I'm eating now. And she said, okay, we just need to monitor it. I need you to take your iron tablets. She thought it was a good idea, but just make sure you keep up those tablets. And so I did. The day I went back in, I'd had Squishy the day before, but I'd had my iron test the week before. And I'd been 2 weeks on the vegan eating. And when I went in for the antenatal appointment, I took Squishy in. She was born the night before, the afternoon before. And she was surprised that I come in with a baby, but she said it was the best antenatal appointment ever. And I said, well, what was my iron? And she said, as of last week, my iron was up at 124 and my ferritin was 16. Now, I knew my ferritin wouldn't be too high because when you don't eat meat, you don't store iron in the same way because you're not eating heme iron. You're eating non-heme iron, which is from plants. And heme iron stores in the body. I knew my stores wouldn't be very high, but to have a hemoglobin of 124, I hadn't been there since before I had Tash. I hadn't got up there again. So 124 I was ecstatic with. So since having Squishy, I've continued that iron because though I didn't lose a lot of blood, I did become a little bit pale. I didn't lose energy. I had heaps of energy, but I noticed that I'd become just a little bit pale. And so I just have continued that. Now I'm planning on taking another iron test within the next week, but getting a full spectrum like I did the first one. So I know what not only my iron levels are doing, what my thyroid's doing, what my fat profile's doing, and what my cholesterol's doing, all that kind of stuff. I know what it's all doing. So I can see where I was. I compare it to the first slot I had, which was the full spectrum, and go, okay, this has changed, and this has changed, and this has changed. And see where I am and see where improvements need to be. So I'm going to do that. I'll let you know how that goes. But as for my reasonings for going vegan, pretty much Zenobia was my reasoning for going vegan. I didn't want that pain on not just anybody else, but anything else. Nothing else was to suffer because of me. And that's not to say that I don't accidentally stand on an ant if I walk through the grass and things like that. There's not to say that, but I didn't want to intentionally hurt something that didn't need to be hurt. And as much as I hate cockroaches, if we see one, which we haven't for a while, thank goodness, it can be put outside away from the house and I don't have to hurt it. We don't have to hurt anything that's inside the house. And it also means training with Bruce is different, because I don't want him to go through any pain, but I want him to be trained. And so it's training in an ethical manner, and it's learning to do that. And that's that's taking practice, and that's taking understanding, and that's taking that extra time and love and commitment to make sure it's done so nothing gets hurt, nothing suffers. And yeah, so that's my reasoning. So I want to let you know, everyone has their reasons. That was mine. It's a little bit different from, you see animals get hurt and, you know, or environmental or health, or it was kind of like that. It's just from a different way about it. Yeah, so I haven't suffered any. My breast milk is still heaps, and it's very yellower than it's ever been. There's great fat through it. Even though I don't cook with oil very much. And I don't eat a lot of junk. Most of it is whole food, plant-based. I do have the occasional, you know, already made burger, you know, vegan burger, vegan cheese. I do like my vegan cheese. I got vegan butter for the first time yesterday. It's actually really nice in mashed potato. I was trying to figure out what to put in mashed potato that wasn't oil. Yeah, and those kind of things. So it's not completely whole foods. It's just predominantly. Yeah, and so that's what I've been doing. And it's been really good. I have never felt better, and I love the fact that I don't only feel clean. I know that in my eating, I'm not causing anything to suffer because of it. Now let me just put a caveat before I finish, because I love research. I have also done the research that plants feel. I have also read that research that the ex-FBI agent did by putting the things for the polygraph stuff on the plants because he was bored, and then tipping hot coffee on it or yelling at it, and it responded. I understand that plants feel. I get that. And so to say you're not hurting anything, well, clearly you are, but they are actually here to nourish us. And though I'm not religious and I do not go by biblical standards whatsoever, I do like the fact that in the start of the Bible it talked about, you know, every herb and vegetable were given to us for meat. But it also said we had dominion over the animals, but it didn't say we could eat them. And so I think that there's a difference there. However, you only put as much weight in those things as, you know, if you're religious, you're going to put weight in those things. And if you're not, then they're going to mean, nah. I do like that aspect, but that doesn't mean I want to follow the Bible anymore or believe in God any greater, because I don't. But it is interesting that was put in there, and I would like to think that that's the way we were intended to eat, that we weren't intended to eat the animals. We weren't intended to cause something like that that understands pain, that has that recognition that is so similar to ours. We know our dogs and cats have personalities, and they're different from each other. But you also know that when they're, you know, if they're in trouble and they get scared, that they are actually scared. You can see that in them. Or if, you know, they do get frightened. And you also see their happiness and their joy, and you also see their sadness. And to say that a dog and a cow is anything different, I've had cows. They have personalities, very strong ones. And I've had goats, and they have very strong personalities. And I've had sheep. And you can't say they don't have personalities. They absolutely do. And they know fear, and they know pain, and they know happiness, and they know joy. So to say that they are not feeling and not thinking, they definitely are. I just didn't want to cause anything else that pain. I'm not denying the fact that a plant feels. I love the idea that the plant is technically still alive when we ingest it. It's living food. I love that idea. Because you're getting all the nutrients and wonder from that thing. And I also love the fact that I can build muscle and I can be strong and I can be healthy on that food that is from the earth straight to us. And it gives everything food. It gives the animals, it gives every animal, whether it's a ladybug or a bison or an elephant. It gives everything nourishment. And I love the fact that that nourishment is going within me and I feel so clean. And I do not have to sully my body with something that I don't feel is meant to be in there anymore. That's my reason. Long-winded, I know, I am, sorry. But that's it. So I hope that makes more sense to you, and I hope that you can understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. And if you don't, great. But for those that do, I hope this resonates with you a little bit, and that you could understand more of me. But thanks. Have a great day, guys. Bye.